Your kid doesn't deserve an 18th birthday party, Dad said. Not after embarrassing your brother's kid. My kid had refused to hand over the Ford Mustang GT I bought him. I said nothing. I canceled the $28,000 backyard celebration I had planned. Instead, I took just my kid to London for the weekend. We posted one photo. Within an hour, my brother commented, "Call me." Easton's hand was already in the jacket pocket when I turned the corner of Jerome's patio, not reaching for the jacket. In the pocket. His fingers were wrapped around the key fob, and he was pulling it out slowly, the way a person pulls something out of a pocket they know is not theirs. The jacket was Arlo's. It was hanging on the back of a lawn chair next to the cooler, where Arlo had left it 20 minutes ago when the July heat made wearing a jacket at a barbecue feel like wearing a jacket at a barbecue in Austin, which is to say impossible. Arlo came around the side of the house at the same moment I did. He was carrying 2 cans of Dr. Pepper. He saw Easton. He saw Easton's hand. He saw the fob. "Easton, that is mine." Easton did not let go. He held the fob in his fist, and his fist tightened, and his chin came up the way his father Jerome's chin comes up when someone says the word no to a person who has never been required to hear it. "I'm just looking at it." "You are not looking at it. You are taking it. Put it back." 9 people were in Jerome's backyard. My father Clive was at the grill. My mother Della was at the table cutting a watermelon. Jerome was standing by the fence talking to a neighbor. Jerome's wife Taryn was on a lawn chair with her phone. 2 of Clive's retired friends from the post office were sitting in camping chairs drinking beer. A neighbor's teenage daughter was on the back steps scrolling her phone. Easton looked at his mother. Taryn did not look up. Easton looked at Jerome. Jerome had turned his head and was watching. Jerome did not come over. Jerome watched the way he watches everything, which is from a distance that allows him to claim he was not involved. Arlo took the fob from Easton's hand. Not a grab, a take. Clean and flat and without ceremony. Easton's face went red. He said, loud enough for the grill and the table and the fence to hear, "It is just a car." Arlo looked at him. Arlo is 17, turning 18 next Saturday. He is taller than me by an inch. He speaks less than I do, which is already less than most people. He looked at his cousin and said, "It is my car." That is when the quiet changed. Clive put down the grill tongs. He walked to the table where I was standing. He had his announcement walk on, the one where his shoulders set and his jaw leads, and the walk says, "I am the senior man in this yard, and the senior man is about to speak, and the speech will not be a discussion." He stood in front of me. He did not look at Arlo. He did not look at Easton. He looked at me. "Your kid embarrassed his cousin in front of the whole family. Over a car key. A 16-year-old wanted to sit in a car, and your kid treated him like a criminal. Easton had the key in his hand, Dad. He was not asking to sit in it. He was taking it. He is a kid. Kids touch things. He is 16. He was not touching. He was taking." Clive's voice went up half a register. The 2 retired post office friends stopped drinking their beers. The neighbor's daughter on the steps looked up from her phone. "Your kid does not deserve an 18th birthday party. Not after embarrassing your brother's kid. You raised a boy who does not know how to share. You raised him alone because you could not keep a wife, and it shows. He sits in a $52,000 car and tells his own cousin no. That is not character. That is what happens when a man who has gone 200 nights a year thinks buying things is the same as being a father. Your kid does not deserve a party. He deserves to learn what it feels like when nobody shows up." My mother had stopped cutting the watermelon. The knife was resting on the board. She was looking at the table. Not at me, not at Arlo. At the table. Jerome was still at the fence. He had not come over. He had not defended Easton. He had not defended Arlo. He had not done anything because Jerome's whole life is built on standing close enough to watch and far enough to deny. I reached into my pocket and took out my grandfather's Zippo lighter. Twa wings on the casing. Flint is gone. The wheel turns, but there is no flame. My grandfather was a toy mechanic at Lambert Field in St. Louis. He carried this lighter for 31 years. I carry it in my flight bag. I flick the wheel when I am making a decision. The sound is a small, clean click that nobody hears except me. I flicked it once. I looked at my father. Easton did not ask for the keys. He took them out of Arlo's jacket at 4:22. Your security camera has it, Jerome. Jerome's hands went to the fence rail. Both of them. His knuckles tightened around the wood. His weight shifted backward half a step, the way a man's weight shifts when the ground he was standing on turns out to be thinner than he thought. His jaw was working, but nothing was coming out of it. His eyes went to Taryn. Taryn was already looking at him. She had turned her head and was looking at him with the face of a woman who is about to start asking questions she has been saving for a long time. The two retired post office friends had set their beers down. Neither picked them up again. The neighbor's daughter on the steps had lowered her phone. She was watching the way teenagers watch when they understand they are seeing something real. Clive's hand had gone to the grill handle. He was gripping it the way a man grips something when his legs are deciding whether to hold him or not. I put the Zippo back in my pocket. I did not say another word. I walked across the yard. Arlo was already at the gate. He had not been told to leave. He had decided on his own. That is the kind of kid Arlo is. He reads the room the way I read weather at altitude. He walked through the gate. I followed him. We got in the truck. We drove away from Jerome's house on Ridgewood Lane at 4:38 on a Saturday afternoon, and neither of us said a word for the first 4 minutes. Then Arlo said, "He was taking the key, Dad, I know." He had it in his hand. I know. Grandpa did not believe me. I know that too. I almost pulled over and called my father back. I almost drove back to that yard and said every sentence I have been swallowing since I was 17 years old. I did not. I kept driving. Because what I was about to do was not a sentence. It was a spreadsheet and a cancellation and a pair of standby tickets and a photograph in London. And none of those things required me to raise my voice. I fly airplanes for a living. Wide body. Boeing 777. Transatlantic routes. I have been doing it for 14 years. I am a captain with seniority on the London and Frankfurt runs. I am gone a lot. My father is right about that. 200 nights a year is close. Some years more. I have missed birthdays and school plays and baseball games and parent-teacher conferences. And the afternoon, Arlo learned to drive in the high school parking lot with his mother's boyfriend's cousin because his mother was in Scottsdale and I was over Greenland. But here is what I have not missed. I have not missed a mortgage payment in 14 years. I have not missed a car insurance premium. I have not missed a tuition deposit or a dental appointment or a grocery run or a light bill. I have not missed sending my father $1,800 a month for my mother's prescriptions. I have not missed paying the insurance on Jerome's old truck before he traded it in. I have not missed covering the deposit on Jerome's first apartment or the security deposit on Jerome's second apartment or the first month's rent on Jerome's third apartment when the second one fell through. I have been the man in this family who writes the checks and never gets the toast, and I have been that man for so long that the family stopped noticing the checks and started assuming the money arrived the way weather arrives, which is automatically and without anyone having to say thank you. Arlo lives with me full-time. His mother and I divorced 4 years ago. She moved to Phoenix. Arlo chose to stay. He did not choose loudly. He chose the way he does everything, which is by being in the room when I came home and not being in the room when she left. He was 14. He has not talked about the choice. I have not asked. Some conversations happen in the silence between two people who are eating cereal at the same table every morning and not saying anything and not needing to. I bought the Mustang GT 3 months ago. $52,000. Race red. 6-speed manual. Arlo had been working weekends at a car wash since he was 15, saving for his own car. He had $8,600. I told him I would match it. I did not tell him I would match it 10-1. On his 17th birthday, I put the key on the kitchen table next to his cereal bowl. He picked it up, he looked at it, he looked at me. He did not say thank you. He walked outside in his socks and stood next to the car in the driveway and put his hand on the hood and stood there for about 90 seconds without moving. Then he came back inside and ate his cereal. That was his thank you. It was enough. Coach Briggs called me at 10 p.m. the night of my divorce. Ray Briggs, 58 years old, Arlo's high school baseball coach since sophomore year. Briggs does not call parents after 9 unless someone is hurt. Nobody was hurt. He said, "Your kid hit a double today." He looked at the empty seat behind home plate for 6 seconds before he ran. I counted. 6 seconds is a long time for a kid to look at an empty chair. Come to the next game. I do not care what is happening. Come, I came. Arlo went 2 for 4 with a triple. After the game, Briggs walked past me in the parking lot and said nothing. He had already said it. Briggs is the kind of man who says one thing and means it for 5 years. If this is the story you came for, subscribe to Family Secret Tales and stay with me. Because the barbecue was the match. The cancellation was the fuse. London was the explosion. On Sunday morning, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and my grandfather's Zippo and a cup of coffee, and I did 5 things. I canceled the party. The $28,000 backyard celebration I had been planning for 4 months. A caterer, a DJ, a tent company, a custom cake, a photo booth, 84 guests, and a Mustang-themed centerpiece Arlo did not know about. I had spent 2 weekends stringing lights across the backyard. I had built a cornhole set out of plywood and painted it race red to match the car. I had ordered 84 custom napkins with the number 18 printed in silver. The napkins were sitting in a box on my dining room table. They had arrived Friday. I had opened the box and fanned them out, and they looked like small silver promises. Each one stacked on the next, each one waiting for a hand to pick it up and a mouth to use it and a person to matter enough to have been invited. I called the caterer first, then the DJ, then the tent company, then the bakery. Each call was under 2 minutes. Each vendor asked if I wanted to reschedule. Each time I said no, canceled permanently. Full deposits forfeited. I forfeited $6,400 in deposits because the cancellation was inside the 14-day window. I threw the napkins away. I put the cornhole set in the garage. I took the lights down from the backyard fence. That took 40 minutes. I wound them into a coil and put them in a bin in the hall closet, and I did not label the bin because I did not plan to open it again. What I did not know yet was that the party was also my brother Jerome's business plan. Jerome had started a catering company 4 months ago called Klein Table. He had no clients. He had no revenue. He had no track record. What he had was my party. He had already told 30 business contacts that he was catering a major private event in August. He had printed 500 business cards with the party date on them. He had told his spa loan officer that the party was a confirmed catering contract worth $28,000. The loan officer had approved a $45,000 small business loan on the strength of that contract. Jerome had already signed a $3,400 a month commercial kitchen lease with the loan as backing. He had already bought $1,200 worth of serving trays and chafing dishes that were sitting in the kitchen in sealed boxes because he had not unpacked them yet, because he was waiting for the party to validate the purchase. The party I canceled in 4 phone calls on a Sunday morning was the only thing holding Jerome's entire business above water. He did not know it was gone yet. He would not know until Tuesday. The second thing I did was cancel an auto pay. For 3 years, I had been sending my father $1,800 a month for my mother Della's prescriptions. Della has rheumatoid arthritis. The medications are expensive. That is what Clive told me 3 years ago when he called and said, "Your mother's prescriptions are killing us." I had not questioned it. I had set up the auto pay the same day. $1,800 every month. Because he was my father and my mother was in pain, and that is what the useful child does. On Sunday afternoon, I called the pharmacy. The pharmacist pulled Della's account. She read me the monthly copay after insurance. $340. I asked her to say it again. She said it again. $340. I thanked her. I hung up. $340. Not $1,800. The gap was $1,460 a month. Times 30, 6 months. $52,560. My father had been collecting $1,460 a month from me for 3 years for prescriptions that cost less than a fifth of what he was charging. The excess had gone to Jerome. I found the Zelle transfers in Clive's account records later that week when I pulled the statements from the bank. Monthly, consistent, labeled family investment. The investment was Klein Table. The money was mine. Every dollar of Jerome's startup capital was rent I had been paying on my mother's illness without knowing the rent was a lie. I canceled the autopay. The June payment would not arrive. The third thing I did was pull the security footage. Jerome's backyard camera is a Ring system. It backs up to cloud. Jerome had deleted the clip from Saturday afternoon. He had deleted it Sunday morning at 6:14 a.m. But Ring's cloud backup had already synced at 5 a.m. The clip was still there. I had access because I had set up Jerome's Ring system 2 years ago as a favor, and the account was still linked to my email. I downloaded the clip. 17 seconds. Easton walking to the jacket. Easton reaching in. Easton pulling the fob. Arlo coming around the corner. I watched it twice at normal speed. Then I watched it a third time. On the third watch, I noticed something in the left side of the frame. 10 feet from the jacket, standing in Jerome's kitchen doorway with a clear line of sight to the yard, was my mother, Della. She was holding a glass of iced tea. Her body was angled toward the yard. She was watching. The camera caught her face for 3 seconds. Her eyes were on Easton's hand. She saw him reach into the jacket pocket. She saw the fob come out. She watched the whole thing. Then she turned. She turned her back to the yard. She walked into the kitchen. She put the iced tea down on the counter, and she picked up the watermelon knife. And by the time Arlo came around the corner and said, "Easton, that is mine," my mother was cutting watermelon and acting like she had not seen anything. 3 minutes later, she was at the table. Same knife, same watermelon, same face. The face of a woman who has decided which grandson matters and which grandson does not, and who does not need to say it out loud because the turning of her back said it for her. She had been a lookout, not a passive enabler, an active participant. She had watched a 16-year-old reach into her other grandson's jacket and take something that was not his, and she had chosen to say nothing, and then she had let Clive call me Thursday night and blame Arlo for the scene that Easton had created while she watched. I sat at my kitchen table and watched Della turn away a fourth time. The Zippo was in my hand. The wheel clicked, no flame, just the sound of a man deciding how much of his family he was willing to lose in order to keep the part that mattered, which was the kid upstairs, sleeping with a car key around his neck and a passport on his nightstand. If you have made it this far, stay. Family Secret Tales is where the cloud backup does not care who deleted what. The fourth thing I did was book 2 standby tickets to London. Pilot standby. Employee benefit. 2 seats on the Tuesday evening departure from Austin to Heathrow. $380 total. Crew rate hotel near Covent Garden. $62 a night. I packed a bag. I packed Arlo's bag. I did not tell him where we were going until Monday night. He looked at me. He said, "London, London, for my birthday. For your birthday." He did not say thank you. He went to his room and came back with his passport, which he had gotten 2 years ago for a school trip he never took because I was flying the week of the departure and could not sign the last permission form in time. He set the passport on the kitchen table next to his cereal bowl. Same spot I had put the car key 8 months ago. That is how Arlo and I communicate. We put things on the kitchen table and the things say what we mean. Tuesday evening we flew to London. Wednesday morning we walked through Covent Garden. Arlo ate fish and chips on a bench outside a pub that has been open since 1623. He had the Mustang key on a cord around his neck because he had not taken it off since the barbecue, and I had not asked him to. I took one photograph. Arlo standing in front of the pub, grinning, key around his neck, London light behind him. I posted it to Facebook at 3:17 p.m. London time. Caption, 18. London, just us. Within 20 minutes, 14 family members had liked it. My Aunt Corinne commented, "Happy birthday, Arlo." Look at that smile. My cousin Tate commented, "London, that's a dad right there." Coach Briggs liked it without commenting because Briggs does not comment. He likes one thing and the like says everything. Within an hour, Jerome commented, 2 words and a period. "Call me." Now, I was sitting at a table in the pub with Arlo across from me eating a second basket of chips. The pub had dark wood and brass rails and a window that looked out onto a street where people were walking in jackets, because London in August is not Austin in August, and the difference felt like a relief. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. I read the comment. I read it again. Arlo looked at my face. He set a chip down. He said, "Is that Uncle Jerome?" "Yes, what does he want?" "He wants me to call him." "Are you going to?" "No." Arlo picked up the chip. He ate it. He did not ask why. He has learned that when I say no, and my jaw does the thing it does, the no is final, and the why is not required. I almost called. I almost stepped outside into the London street and called my brother and told him that the party was gone, and the business launch was gone, and the spa loan was going to be recalled, and the kitchen lease was going to default. I almost told him that I knew about the prescription money and the Zelle transfers and the camera footage of Della turning away. I did not. I put the phone face down on the table. I ordered sticky toffee pudding for both of us. The pudding came. It was warm. The pub was warm. The key was around Arlo's neck. London was outside the window. Jerome was 4,700 miles away, refreshing a Facebook post that had 41 likes and 0 calls back, and no amount of refreshing was going to change either number. Arlo finished his pudding. He looked at the window. He said, "Dad, yeah, this is better than a party." I know. This is better than a party by a lot. I did not say anything. I did not need to. The pudding said it. The window said it. The 4,700 miles said it. The fifth thing I found was the text. I did not find it. Taryn found it. On Thursday, 2 days after the London photo, Taryn was scrolling through Jerome's iPad, looking for a recipe she had saved in his notes app. She did not find the recipe. She found the text thread with Easton instead. It was 3 weeks old. Most of the messages were ordinary. Pickup times. Dinner plans. One about a baseball game. But one message stood out. One message changed the shape of the conversation between Taryn and Jerome permanently. Jerome to Easton, "Don't worry about the Mustang. By Christmas, that car will be in our driveway. Your uncle doesn't say no to Dad. Never has." Taryn read it 3 times. She screenshotted the text. She sat on the edge of the bed for 4 minutes. Then she sent me the screenshot. She did not add a message, just the image. Just the sentence that proved Jerome had treated my son's car like a layaway item he had not yet picked up. I looked at it for a long time. Jerome had pre-sold my son's car to his son. He had told a 16-year-old not to worry. He had told Easton that the car was coming by Christmas. He had told Easton that I would fold because I always fold when Clive pushes. For 22 years, that had been true. It stopped being true at a barbecue on a Saturday in July when a 16-year-old's hand went into the wrong jacket pocket and a 17-year-old said the word mine and meant it. The party was supposed to be the following Saturday, the backyard at my house on Mesquite Lane. 84 guests. The tent. The DJ. The Mustang-themed cake. Jerome had told his 30 business contacts the address and the time. He had not sent a cancellation because he did not know there was anything to cancel. He had assumed the party would happen because Jerome assumes everything will happen the way he has decided it will happen. On Saturday, at 5:30 p.m., 6 of those business contacts drove to my house on Mesquite Lane. The backyard gate was locked. The house was dark. No tent, no DJ, no caterer, no lights. The yard was empty except for a garden hose coiled on the patio and 2 lawn chairs that had been there since April. One of the contacts, a woman in a blazer who had brought a bottle of wine as a client gift, stood at the gate for 4 minutes. She peered over the fence. She looked at the empty yard. She looked at her wine bottle. She set it on the ground by the gate and took a photograph of the locked yard on her phone. She texted Jerome, "We're at the address you gave us. Nobody's here. Is this a joke?" A second contact, a man in a polo shirt who managed a chain of office parks, pulled up 3 minutes later. He sat in his car and called Jerome. Jerome did not answer. The man waited 4 minutes and left. A third contact and a fourth arrived together. They stood at the gate talking to each other. One of them said, loud enough for my neighbor to hear, "This is the guy who handed me a business card last month and said he had a $28,000 contract. Where is the contract?" My neighbor was on her porch. She heard everything. She told me later. Jerome did not reply to the text for 11 minutes. When he replied, he said, "Change of plans. I will be in touch." He was never in touch. The woman in the blazer drove home and told her husband. Her husband told his business partner. By Monday morning, Jerome's name had a reputation in a small Austin catering network that he had spent 4 months trying to enter, and the reputation was a locked gate and an empty yard and a bottle of wine sitting on the ground next to a garden hose. The 7 things that happened over the next 3 weeks are things. Jerome's spa loan was recalled. The loan officer had approved $45,000 on the strength of a confirmed catering contract that Jerome had listed as the party. When no event materialized and no invoice was generated, the bank sent a verification letter. Jerome could not produce a signed contract because no contract had ever existed. He had told the bank he had a contract. He had told the bank the party was confirmed. He had lied on a federal loan application. The bank recalled the loan and flagged the file for review. Jerome had already signed a $3,400 a month kitchen lease. First month's rent was due August 15th. He missed it. He called the landlord to negotiate. The landlord said, "You signed a 12-month lease. I cannot negotiate a 12-month lease after 1 missed payment." Jerome said he understood. He did not understand. He hung up. The landlord filed a lien the following Friday. The prescription math was posted in the family group chat. 31 people. I posted one line, "Dad has been charging me $1,800/month for mom's prescriptions. The pharmacy copay is $340. The gap over 3 years is $52,560. All Zelle records attached." I attached 6 screenshots. Monthly Zelle transfers from Clive to Jerome, each labeled family investment, each in the amount of $1,400 to $1,500. Each on the same date I sent Clive $1,800 for prescriptions. The math was visible. The math was not ambiguous. Clive's brother, my Uncle Vernon, responded within the hour. "Clive, you told me Della's prescriptions were expensive. I sent you $4,000 in March because you said you were behind. Where's the $4,000? Vernon left the chat. Vernon's wife left the chat 4 minutes later without saying a word. 13 people left in the next 72 hours. The chat went from 31 to 18. The 18 included 9 who had not spoken. The last visible message above the exodus was a photo Clive had posted 3 weeks ago of himself at the barbecue with a plate of ribs and a caption that said, "Family is everything." The photo included Jerome's backyard in the background. If you look carefully, you could see Arlo's jacket hanging on the back of a lawn chair. Taryn moved out. She packed 2 suitcases and Easton's school bag and drove to her mother's house in San Marcos on a Wednesday afternoon while Jerome was at the closed kitchen trying to negotiate with the landlord by phone. She did not take the iPad. She left it on the kitchen counter with the screen dark, but the text thread still loaded underneath. The message where Jerome had promised Easton a car that was never his to promise sitting right there in black text on a white background like a receipt from a store that does not do refunds. When Jerome came home, the apartment was quiet in the way apartments are quiet when the thing that made them loud has left and is not planning to come back soon. He called Taryn. She answered once. She said, "I read the text, Jerome. You told our son he was getting someone else's car. I cannot look at you right now." She hung up. He called 4 more times. She did not answer. Clive asked Pastor Holden to call me. Second week. Holden is the family church pastor. He called on a Tuesday afternoon. His voice was careful, the way voices are careful when a person has been given one side of a story and is beginning to suspect the side they were given was the short one. He said Clive wanted to offer $5,000 to resolve things. I said, "Pastor, my father has taken $52,000 from me in 3 years for prescriptions that cost $340 a month. The $5,000 is mine already." Pastor Holden was quiet for 8 seconds. Then he said, "I did not know that. I am sorry I called." He hung up. I do not blame the pastor. I blame the man who gave the pastor half a story and expected the half to carry the whole. Coach Briggs sent me one text. Saw the London Post. That's a father. Don't let them tell you otherwise. I read it in my car in the parking lot after a flight from Frankfurt. I read it 3 times. I did not reply because Coach Briggs does not need replies. He needs you to show up. I showed up. I have been showing up every Monday for 12 years. Not because he asked. Because he sat on a curb once and said nothing for 5 minutes, and then said one sentence that saved my son from having a father who quit. Della sat in the church parking lot on Sunday morning, 3 weeks after the barbecue. Engine running. Windows up. Ack on because it was August in Austin, and even shame needs climate control. Pastor Holden walked past her car on his way to the side entrance. He glanced at her through the windshield. She did not roll down the window. She did not wave. He went inside. She sat there for 14 minutes. Then she put the car in reverse and drove home. She did not go to church that day. She has not been to church since. My Aunt Corinne sits in the 4th pew. She has not seen Della in 3 consecutive Sundays. She told me on the phone last Tuesday. She said, "Your mother used to sit in the 2nd pew. Now the 2nd pew has 2 empty seats and nobody asks about them." Jerome's commercial kitchen lease defaulted at the end of the month. The landlord changed the locks. Jerome drove to the kitchen on a Saturday morning to pick up his equipment and found a padlock on the door and a lien notice taped to the glass. He sat in his truck in the parking lot for 35 minutes. He did not call anyone. He did not text anyone. He sat with his hands on the wheel and the engine off, and the August heat coming through the windshield, and the menu he had printed on 500 pieces of cardstock sitting in a box on the passenger seat. The cardstock was cream-colored. The font was clean. The name at the top said Klein Table. Below the name was a list of dishes he had never cooked for anyone who was paying. He had been planning to hand the menus out at a party that was canceled 3 weeks ago by a man who had said nothing, done everything, and was 4,700 miles away when the silence landed. Sunday morning, 1 week after London, my driveway on Mesquite Lane. The Mustang GT parked at the curb. Windows down because it was early and the Austin heat had not started yet, and the air smelled like cut grass and gasoline, which is what August mornings smell like in Texas when someone on the block has been mowing. Arlo was in the driver's seat. I was in the passenger seat. Engine off. Coffee from the gas station on the dashboard. 2 cups. One black, one with too much sugar, because that is how Arlo drinks coffee, and I have decided not to correct it, because there are things worth correcting, and coffee is not one of them. The Zippo was in Arlo's hand. He was flicking the wheel. Click, click, no flame. Just the sound. The same sound my grandfather made when he was thinking. The same sound I make when I am deciding. Arlo was not deciding anything. He was just flicking it because it felt right in his hand, and the morning was quiet, and the car was his, and nobody was asking for the keys. Across town on Ridgewood Lane, Jerome's house was quiet in a different way. The kitchen lease had defaulted. The spa loan was in collections. The business cards with the party date were in a box in the garage next to a stack of cardstock menus nobody would ever read. Taryn was in San Marcos. Easton was in San Marcos. The iPad was on the counter, screen dark, text thread still open underneath. Clive's house on Burnett Road had the axe set to 83 to save money because the prescription auto pay had stopped and the $1. 460 monthly surplus had dried up. The last sound Clive remembered clearly from the barbecue, the one he heard in his kitchen at night when the house was quiet, was the small, clean click of a Zippo lighter that had no flame. His son had been at the fence with his hands on the rail. His grandson had been at the jacket. And the other grandson, the one he had called undeserving, had been walking away with a key around his neck and a father who did not look back. The lighter had clicked once. Small, final, the sound of a decision that did not need to be explained. Della had not been to church in 3 weeks. The family group chat had 18 people in it, and none of them had spoken in 5 days. Pastor Holden had not called back. On my driveway, the coffee was warm. The Zippo clicked once more. Arlo set it down on the dashboard next to his cup. He looked at the street. A neighbor was walking a dog. A sprinkler was going 3 houses down. The Mustang was in the sun. The leather was warm. The key was around Arlo's neck on the same cord it had been on since the barbecue, and it would stay there until he decided to take it off, and he had not decided, and I had not asked. If this story found you today, subscribe to Family Secret Tales and share it with the person who was told their kid did not deserve a party and proved that the party was never the point. My grandfather carried this lighter for 31 years, and it never stopped clicking, and the click was the sound of a man who knew what he was doing even when no one else in the room agreed. The flint is gone. The wheel still turns. The sound is still there. Arlo flicked it one more time. Click. The morning was quiet. The car was his. The key was on.